The wind howled through the village of Umuahia. Rain poured heavily, and thunder roared in the sky. Deep in the forest, a young girl named Irene sat alone under a giant baobab tree. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged her knees. She was no ordinary girl. Sometimes, her legs turned into the long, scaly body of a snake. Her own parents had thrown her away. Irene was born to a wealthy couple, Chief Omenka and his wife, Nkem. When she was a baby, she was perfect, beautiful, soft-skinned, with deep brown eyes. But when she turned 12, strange things started happening. At night, her legs would disappear, and in their place, a long, green serpent's tail would slither across the floor. Her mother screamed the first time she saw it. "She is a demon. A child of the underworld," Nkem cried. Her father, filled with fear and shame, took Irene deep into the forest one night. He left her there, alone, with nothing but the sound of the crickets and the whispering trees. "Do not return," he said, his voice trembling. "You are not my daughter." Irene begged and cried, but Chief Omenka walked away without looking back. For days, Irene wandered the dark forest, hungry and weak. But the spirits of the land took pity on her. The river goddess, Enenimiri, appeared to her in a vision. "You are not cursed, my child," the goddess said. "You are special." With the goddess's blessing, Irene learned to survive. She could talk to the animals, control the wind, and even command snakes to do her bidding. But she was lonely. The pain of rejection still burned in her heart. One day, a group of hunters from Umuahia came into the forest. They had heard rumors of a snake girl haunting the land. When they saw Irene, they screamed. "She is a monster," one of them shouted. Irene tried to speak, but before she could explain, they threw their spears. In fear and anger, her serpent instinct awakened. Her lower body transformed, and with the speed of a viper, she struck. The hunters fled, leaving their weapons behind. That night, the village was filled with whispers. "She has returned," the elders murmured. "The cursed child is alive." Irene's heart ached. She did not want to be feared. She only wanted love. One night, she sneaked back into the village, hoping to see her parents. She found her mother washing clothes by the river. "Mama," she called softly. Nkem turned and saw her daughter, now grown, more beautiful than ever but with a serpent's tail coiling in the water. She screamed in terror. "Stay away from me, evil one." Tears filled Irene's eyes. "Mama, it's me. I have done nothing wrong." But before her mother could answer, the villagers arrived with torches and weapons. "Kill her," they chanted. Heartbroken and betrayed, Irene let out a wail so powerful that the trees trembled. The river raged, and the sky darkened. With a single glance, she commanded the snakes of the forest to rise. Hundreds slithered into the village, hissing and striking fear into the people. The village screamed in terror. The snakes wrapped around houses, slithered into streets, and coiled around the feet of those who had wronged her. Chief Omenka, her own father, begged her not to hurt them. "Irene, please, don't kill them." But Irene had suffered too much. "You abandoned me," she whispered. "You left me to die." With one final command, the snake scared them into the darkness. The villagers ran, never to return. From that day, no one ever saw Irene again. Some say she still lives deep in the forest, watching, waiting. Others believe she became one with the spirits, ruling the land of the forgotten. But at night, when the wind howls and the trees whisper, the villagers of Umuahia tell their children, "Never abandon your own, or the snake girl will come for you." Years passed, but the memory of Irene never faded from Umuahia. The village never recovered from her wrath. Crops withered, cattle died mysteriously, and the rivers dried up. The people whispered that Irene's spirit still haunted them, punishing them for their cruelty. At night, strange sounds filled the air, the hissing of unseen snakes, the rustling of leaves even when there was no wind. Children were warned never to wander near the forest. But one boy did not listen. Obina, a stubborn young boy of 16, had always been curious about the legend of Irene. Unlike the elders, he did not believe she was a monster. He had heard the stories, but something in his heart told him there was more to the tale. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Obinna ventured into the forbidden forest. Armed with only a small knife and a lantern, he followed the trail of broken branches and slithering marks in the soil. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. He could feel eyes watching him. The trees seemed to whisper his name. Then, he saw her. Irene stood by a shimmering pool of water, her beauty untouched by time. Her dark, flowing hair cascaded down her back, her brown eyes glowed in the dim light. But beneath her waist, a long, green serpent's tail coiled on the ground. Obinna gasped. He had expected a beast, but instead, he saw a woman, one filled with sorrow, not rage. "I know why you are here," Irene said, her voice like the wind through the trees. Obinna took a step forward, his heart pounding. "I want to know the truth. Are you really the monster they say you are?" Irene's lips curved into a sad smile. "No, child. I was only a girl who wanted love. But love was denied to me." Obinna saw the pain in her eyes. He had never known her, but he felt her suffering deep in his soul. "Then why do you haunt the village? Why do our people suffer?" Irene's expression darkened. "Because they never repented. They left me to die. They feared me instead of trying to understand me." Obinna hesitated. "And if they did repent, would you forgive them?" For the first time in years, Irene was silent. Could she truly forgive? Could she let go of the pain that had shaped her existence? "There is only one way," she said finally. "Bring me the one who cursed me first, Chief Omenka." Obinna's heart sank. Chief Omenka was now an old man, frail and weak. He rarely spoke of his past, but guilt weighed on him like a heavy stone. Obinna knew what he had to do. The next morning, Obinna gathered the villagers. He told them of his meeting with Irene, of her sorrow and her demand. At first, there was fear. "She will kill us all," a woman cried. But then, Chief Omenka, now bent with age, stepped forward. His eyes were filled with tears. "She is right to be angry," he said. "I cast away my own daughter because I was afraid. I was weak. I deserve her wrath." The people gasped. Many had never heard the full truth before. "What should we do?" a man asked. Chief Omenka took a deep breath. "We must go to her. We must ask for her forgiveness." That night, led by Obinna, the villagers made their way into the forest. They carried no weapons, only torches and offerings of food and cloth. Irene emerged from the shadows, her serpent tail gliding over the leaves. The villagers trembled, but Chief Omenka stepped forward. He fell to his knees before his daughter. "Irene," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I have wronged you. I was a fool. I was blind. If you wish for my life, take it. But please, do not punish the innocent for my sins." Irene's eyes glowed in the darkness. The snakes that had surrounded the villagers stilled, waiting. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then a single tear fell from her eye. "I have waited many years to hear those words," she said softly. "Father, you abandoned me, but I did not stop loving you." The villagers watched in shock as Irene's serpent tail began to fade. Her legs, once cursed, returned. She stood before them, fully human once more. From that day, peace returned to Umuahia. The rivers flowed again, and the land became fertile. Irene, now accepted by her people, lived among them once more, not as a monster, but as a legend. And so, whenever the wind howled through the trees, the people of Umuahia did not fear. They knew it was not the sound of a vengeful spirit, but the whisper of forgiveness. Please like and subscribe to enjoy more of this.